Tonight, on an almost special edition of Evening, grab your Speedwalker suit.
Doggone it! I'm gonna have to walk that train down.
Take a spin with Ballard Driving Academy.
That's it, just keep weaving. That's good.
And make an appointment at the Linwood Beauty Academy.
You can never have too much of a good thing.
It's an almost tribute to Almost Live.
Welcome to the show from South Lake Union. I'm St. Brian, and we are at MOHAI, the Museum of History and Industry, which is celebrating Almost Live, the King 5 comedy show that taught Seattle how to laugh at itself.
It's a delightful trip down memory lane.
Oh, wow, that goes way back.
That's
Almost Live cast members Nancy Guppy and Steve Wilson are among the first to get a sneak peek at an exhibit celebrating the show that first aired on King 5 40 years ago.
okay, there's a Johnny.
I know,
there's a Johnny shirt.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. They were so garish, but they were great, actually.
It was a show made by talented people who weren't just smart and funny. Behind the scenes, they all needed to have a special talent just to make things happen.
I called it guerrilla television. I think we all did. It's like, we need to do this, and we would just like fashion stuff together and build it from scratch.
Oh man, Speedwalker. Oh, there's the shorts.
Did he make that himself?
Yeah, probably.
Speedwalker! Heel toe! Heel toe!
There were sketches that made us laugh at neighborhood stereotypes and made us all feel a little more at home.
It wasn't mean. We weren't mean-spirited. It was super, super community in a way.
And now this community is having its moment in a museum.
Just because something is a museum doesn't mean that it's old. It means that it's interesting and it's valuable. And I think this is a story that a lot of Seattleites love, that people connected with this show. It brought smiles to their faces, and it's about us.
Almost Live, Almost an Exhibit opens Saturday here at MOHAI. And since we have some of the former cast members here, we asked our friends to introduce their favorite sketch. Let's start with Nancy Guppy.
So presenting Alan was me, Tracy Conway, and Bob Nelson. And the basic bit was I was introducing Tracy to my new boyfriend, and we proceed to rip him apart in front of him, all the things we need to change to make him into the man that he really needs to be.
Okay, before you say anything at all, I mean, his hair is going to be totally different. This is way too 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, I want it kind of away from his face. And maybe a little longer in the back, you think?
It's nice, though.
And of course, new frames. I mean, something that doesn't make him look like such a turtle. Huh, but not too John Lennon-y.
No, that wouldn't fit his face at all.
No, round, no. Okay, clothes.
Well, obviously not these.
I'm thinking Gap. White T-shirt or a white Oxford. A straight leg jeans, black, of course. I mean, I know it's not original, but I think it'll give me a foundation to build on.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay, shoes. Oh, God, don't look at the shoes.
Boy, those are really bad.
Well, his old girlfriend worked at Mervyn's.
Say no more.
Anyway, I think I'm going to bring in some black loafers. It's clean and simple.
What about Doc Martens?
Boots or low cuts?
Definitely low cuts.
Thank you, Nancy. Almost Live began in 1984 as a weekly show starring comedian Ros Schaeffer. One night, they asked a staff writer and kind of a science buff to help fill some time, and a legend was born. This is how it happened.
Here's an ordinary onion.
Yeah.
Okay, now how would you dice it? You'd use a cutting board, maybe a knife.
Right, yeah.
Take you a few minutes, right?
Okay. In the liquid nitrogen
Into the liquid
it goes.
nitrogen. Doesn't take long at all. It's a time saver.
More than 30 years later, Bill Nye the Science Guy has taught the world that science rules and that we ignore science at our own peril. Jim caught up with Bill recently to learn more about his origin story.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Before he was Bill Nye the Science Guy, he was just a guy working as an engineer at Boeing when he happened to pop into a comedy club.
And they had a Steve Martin lookalike contest, and I won.
That led to a friendship with Ros Schaeffer, the original host of King's comedy show, Almost Live.
I've crossed paths with Ross at comedy clubs and John Keister at comedy clubs. And so they said, hey, do you want to help write for the show? And I said, okay. And then I started submitting jokes. They weren't especially good.
While working as a writer for the show in the late 80s, Bill was on hand when opportunity knocked.
A guest didn't show up.
Somehow, they had to fill 6 minutes.
So Ross, at a writer's meeting, this offhanded, well, you know, Bill, why don't you do that stuff you're always talking about? You're always talking about science. Why don't you could be Bill Nye the Science Guy or something.
What? The bit was a hit.
It became clear that the science guy should be a recurring character.
You created a lot of fire in that studio.
A tornado of fire. Ooh.
I know our facilities manager, Florence, had a lot of anxiety over that. How were you able to keep doing that?
We were cautious. We had fire extinguishers around, and so we all got along, since you asked.
There's a big cabbage luncheon at the Swedish Club.
In addition to the science guy,
hello, I'm Bill Nye.
Bill also appeared as various other characters.
This looks like a job for...
including Speedwalker.
Speedwalker!
The superhero who fights crime while adhering to international rules of speedwalking.
You do a great William Shatner impersonation.
Mr. Scott, I need more power.
But once you hear someone do Captain Kirk, it's pretty straightforward.
He was having fun, but he wanted more.
And I was worried about the future.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill and his local producers took the science guy to a young global audience.
And I decided that getting kids excited about science was the thing I really wanted to do with my life.
And what started right here in Seattle has gone on to change the world.
Bill Nye isn't the only guy to make it big after a stint on Almost Live.
Joel McHale started as an intern while attending the University of Washington. He was bumped up to a regular in the mid-90s, appearing in sketches, and had a recurring bit as William Wallace.
But I say unto you here and now, Nordstrom can take our masculinity, but they can never take our freedom!
Joel would go on to star in dozens of movies and TV shows, including 6 seasons on the NBC comedy Community. Bob Nelson got hired in 1989 after he wrote a bunch of sketches and hand-delivered them to King TV. That turned into a 10-year career. If you needed someone to play disheveled and dim-witted, Bob was your guy.
Tell us, how exactly did you get that nickname?
Well, it's just something that the women have always called me.
He continued his career as a writer in Hollywood, penning the Oscar-nominated screenplay for the movie Nebraska in 2014. Lauren Weedman joined the cast in the final seasons of Almost Live.
Okay, it's my turn. My turn.
Go ahead.
Go
Right
ahead.
here. Yes,
Okay.
okay.
All right. Okay. Here we go. I am gonna stand up to my mother. I am, but oops! I have no spine though. No spine at all. Look at that.
It was her first time on TV, but certainly not the last. She would go on to be an in-demand character actor, appearing in everything from Curb Your Enthusiasm to Will and Grace, and most recently, Hacks.
The rock and roll drummer with perfect comic timing.
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I'm sorry.
And the big stars who performed on Almost Live when evening returns.
I am Jamie Lee Curtis.
Local stories make a difference. With the power to enrich lives, strengthen communities, and make us smile. Evening is made possible by Primera Blue Cross. Primera Blue Cross, always in your corner.
Welcome back to Evening from MOHAI as we celebrate the classic King 5 comedy show, Almost Live. All right, let's have another former cast member, Steve Wilson, introduce his all-time favorite sketch.
Back in the day, King 5 was located on Aurora Avenue North, at least the backside was, and that's where all the streetwalkers, they worked. And so Bob Nelson got the idea to take streetwalkers, but turn them into lawyers. And the effect is just basically the streetwalking lawyers of Aurora Avenue North.
Your resume is very impressive. But as you must know, like most law firms right now, we just don't need another lawyer. I'm sorry.
He was a victim of supply and demand. But now, he's one of the new breed of lawyers who are taking the law into their own hands and into the streets. They're the street-walking lawyers of Aurora Avenue. There's nothing they won't do to get a case.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Hi.
Now, you look like you could use a friend.
What are you charging?
Depends on what you need.
Uncontested divorce.
I can do that. For $50, I'll give you a consultation drive around the block. For $250, I'll stay up all night with you and do the paperwork.
Sounds fair to me.
Great. Hey, how about my friend here?
Hi.
Hi.
Ever wonder what it would be like with two lawyers?
Sure. Why not? It is.
Yes, they're sleazy, and they're lawyers, and NBC's got them. The street-walking lawyers of Aurora Avenue.
That is a classic. Steve has another great story to share about a famous rock and roll drummer with perfect comedic timing. Here's Jim.
It's not every day that you run into a world-famous musician at a curiosity shop.
I met Dave in Fremont at a place called Glamorama. Hello, I'm Steve Wilson.
It was the early 90s when Steve Wilson, a performer and director for the King 5 comedy show Almost Live, first ran into Nirvana drummer Dave Grohl.
I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, I know you. And he goes, I know you.
The two of them and their girlfriends became the best of buddies.
We bowled together, we took dancing lessons together.
Hey, old guys!
So it was only natural that when someone at Almost Live had the idea for a new sketch called Rockstar Fantasy Camp, they asked Steve to give his friend Dave a call.
He was actually recording the first Foo Fighters album up at Robert Lang's studio.
The crew headed up to the legendary studio in Shoreline.
That's when we shot his portion of Rockstar Fantasy Camp.
And you too can learn the tricks of the rock and roll trade.
Dave was comic perfection.
Good evening, people from Cleveland. We'll be playing some... Get moored from the stomach. Oh. Hey, Cleveland, are you ready to party? Hey, Cleveland, are you ready to... You get more... Hey, you come on, let's get it, party!
He's very funny. He's got a great sense of humor. He loves clowning around.
Dave Grohl.
About a year later, the rocker came back to the show to appear in a bit with Nancy Guppy, who played a narcissistic talk show host.
Well, I talked about it.
Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that last chord, it should have been an A minor.
No, actually, it's supposed to be a C.
That one was really great because that was done live in front of the studio audience.
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I'm sorry, too.
The sketch was largely unscripted.
I think his answers were pretty much his own.
So,
I don't think that you're actually... Oh, my God!
And they cut that guitar, if you look at it, when they pull it apart. And it didn't come apart easily, and I told them, we only get one shot at this. The bit doesn't work unless the guitar breaks.
It broke all right and returned as a gag later in the show during host John Keister's Late Report.
Fix it.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure did.
It was a last-minute addition to the program.
That just came up, you know, like during rehearsal.
I'll just leave it right over here.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters would go on to film plenty of off-the-wall music videos. Watch closely, and you'll spot some of the same comedic instincts that were on display at King 5 all those years ago.
Thank you very much, and we're going to take care of that guitar. It's all going to be okay.
He was great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim. Members of Soundgarden and Pearl Jam also appeared on Almost Live. In the early years of that show, host Ros Schaeffer often interviewed celebrities and comedians before they were household names.
Please welcome Jerry Seinfeld.
Yep, that's right. Before he got his own sitcom, Jerry Seinfeld was just a touring stand-up comic. He stopped by Almost Live before a gig at Seattle's Giggles Comedy Club.
Be here. This is a great town. I love Seattle because it's a moisturizer, but it works like a city.
There was Ellen DeGeneres, who joked about the benefits of a healthy lifestyle.
Is everybody keeping in shape and staying healthy here?
Yeah!
Yeah, that's great, yeah. That's important. You know, my grandmother started walking 5 miles a day when she was 60. She's 97 today, and we don't know where the hell she is.
Talk show host Phil Donahue was a good sport, playing along with Ross's jazz.
How old were you when your hair went gray?
Probably, It's a long way to come to be insulted tonight.
And finally, it was rare, but the occasional celebrity would pop up in a sketch, like Jamie Lee Curtis. But was it really her?
And then there's the mystery of the bottle woman, who looks astonishingly similar to Jamie Lee Curtis.
I am Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't know, some idiot.
A congenital liar from Bothell, who looks astonishingly similar to Jamie Lee Curtis.
I've never been to Bothell.
Full versions of all the celebrity appearances, as well as Bill Nye's very first Science Guy sketch, are available online at king5.com/almostlive. And when you visit the exhibit, there is a QR code that will direct you to our King 5 Plus app for all the laughs.
Coming up, the cast of Almost Live shares the secrets.
That's our own Jim Dever getting tackled in the hallways by Nancy Guppy on Almost Live. The show holds so many great memories for viewers and for the cast, and one of the show's stars is keeping those memories alive. Here's Jim.
Good evening and welcome to Studs from Microsoft.
One of the show's funniest cast members is Pat Cashman.
Nice sweater, Pat.
Thank you. It helps me sweat.
He is also one of its biggest fans.
We were doing local jokes about local issues, local politics, neighborhoods. That's why I think it found its footing for all those years.
Pat was known for writing and performing in some of Almost Live's best-known bits.
I know the viewers have their own short list of their favorite sketches. Do you have one for yourself?
One was called The Weather with Brian Dixon.
We've got some high pressure building here off the coast, a lot of heavy pressure to get Brian Dixon out of here, even though he worked his butt off for the station for 7 years.
One of my favorite bits is the Green River Dance. And that simply came from a viewer that called in and said, Green River Dance, click.
Now he's launched a limited podcast series called Almost Live, Still Alive, featuring in-depth interviews with nearly every person who ever worked on the show.
What are they up to now? Or how many of them are in prison? You know, that kind of stuff.
The podcast reveals details even some of the staff never knew.
I think a lot of people are making stuff up, but who cares?
Nancy Guppy speaks candidly about long-ago troubles in her marriage to fellow cast member Joe Guppy.
The phrase was, in my mind, Pat, was, "It's over."
Tracy Conway recalls the curtain call moment when her heart literally stopped beating.
The first fella that stood up, he was very well trained in CPR.
She was clinically dead. 2 weeks later, she's back on the show again.
And host John Keister remembers the affection of his local audience.
I walked out and it was like this eruption. I'm getting choked up here. And then there's this other, like, enormous applause, you know?
Oh, that's great.
Almost Live, Still Alive is a love letter to a time when Seattle was a little smaller and maybe a little funnier.
I don't think any of us took it for granted. So we said, let's really enjoy this ride. And I think everybody did.
Thank you, Jim. We've got a link to Pat's podcast from our own website, king5evening.com. Welcome back to MOHAI, where we're celebrating Almost Live, the King 5 comedy show that taught Seattle how to laugh at itself. No celebration is complete without a look back at a prank that backfired horribly on April 1st, 1989. Here's Jim.
Good evening. Approximately 7 minutes ago at 6:53 p.m., the Space Needle collapsed.
It was supposed to be a joke, but in the end, no one was laughing.
So many people called 911 that it actually shut the 911 lines down.
The police were not happy with us. The city was not happy with us.
Information at this point is incomplete. We do know that injuries are minimal.
Within minutes of the airing, the phones started ringing.
I got a phone call from the outside switchboard company that took phone calls for the station, and they said, "What have you done? We've just gotten, hundreds of phone calls."
There were people from Eastern Washington, medical people who came over to volunteer.
The stunt made national headlines. After consulting with management and lawyers, Keister was forced to go on the air the following week and apologize. Though the joke may be laughable now, the Almost Live cast has a little advice for future April Foolers.
Make sure that you do it in a way that doesn't hint that people could be dead.
Good advice, and that is going to wrap things up for us here at MOHAI, where Almost Live and Almost Exhibit opens to the general public on Saturday and runs through February of 2025. Thanks so much for watching.